I don't deserve success. I don't deserve to be happy. I am a failure and no one respects me. No one wants me around. Are these statements actually true? Do you believe these statements? Of course you do. You believe them because these are the stories you tell yourself. Well, that's not completely true. These are stories your subconscious tells you, and it's developed from your past. So it's time to get rid of them. And the person to do this is Victoria Richardson. She's the founder of the Rapid Renegade. She's a certified Psych K facilitator and a subconscious expert. She guides you to quickly resolve the root cause of your emotional pain, stress, and self-limiting beliefs, and for you to be free. And I met her at ColbyCon. She did a great presentation, and I needed to talk to you about this. So, Victoria, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me. This is great.
Your background, you did a presentation at ColbyCon about limiting self-beliefs. And there's a lot of stuff there that hit home and is very true. And, I really love this whole brain thing. My whole journey with ADHD is the brain is an amazing thing. And what the brain will do to protect you by creating stories or rigid routines or beliefs so they can protect you. But that was a long time ago when it wasn't safe. So in a way, if you were told all the time you're worthless, I think your brain kind of says, well, I'm just going to kind of agree with that so that you can feel happier rather than be upset all the time. And then you kind of believe that with time and, oh, well, someone told me I'm worthless, therefore I am, off I go, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we have well, there's different ways that our subconscious is programmed, right? It's societal, it's through family, it's through
Right.
coaches, it's through we're really good at making meaning, right? And so as children, we will jump to conclusions, we will make meaning, we will create stories to keep ourselves, like you said, safe, comfortable, familiar. And so some of our stories can be self-created, some of them can be societal, some of them can be the systems and structures in which we live in, patriarchy. It can be the voice of a disappointing coach or a teacher that you really
Mhm.
took to heart, and now you're internalizing that belief, and now that's on repeat in your head, right? And that's what comes
Yeah.
up when we meet challenges or we are in difficult situations or um, we are met with an opportunity even, we can have these stories come up and they're automatic. It's the recorder that's playing in the background all the time, and the subconscious system is responsible for up to 98% of our behavior and our day. And when we have a lot of disempowering stories and limiting beliefs, that can really stand in the way of you achieving what you want to achieve. And like you said, they come from the past.
Sorry, you said that 90% of our behavior is controlled by our subconscious.
Yeah.
So two of it's conscious.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. Like that's
Well,
so with your subconscious, that'd be like if you're triggered, your subconscious goes to automatic mode or your reactions comes to
well,
automatic.
it's the autopilot, right? It's like,
Right.
how can you drive and get home and you forget your drive? How do you operate? How are you cooking? How are you, right? So all of this is done from our autopilot. It's done from memory. It's done from the programming we
Right.
have. Our conversations even often we're talking from our belief systems, right? Unless we're giving concentrated conservative effort to something, that's our conscious brain. That's the goal setter. It's like
Mm.
I'm gonna create this goal. I'm gonna make this plan, and it's a conscious effort. But yeah, 95 to 98% of what we do, how we think, what we perceive about ourselves and others comes from the subconscious system.
Amazing. So you were hinting a little bit earlier how those limiting beliefs sabotage our growth. Maybe if you can give me a little definition of what you think a limiting belief is that we can all understand and reflect on.
Oh, so many. Okay. Um, I'm not worthy enough.
Mhm.
I'm not enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not capable. I'm not good at making decisions. I I'm terrible at relationships. I don't know, right? I don't know is a good one
Yeah.
because that was one of my stories is that I I was in 3 years of therapy to try to understand and try to feel better about the relationship I had with my mother-in-law because we had several different instances and then one really big instance. And I didn't want to have a tumultuous relationship. I didn't want to feel the way that I did toward her or in general around her. And I remember standing in the kitchen with my husband and he's like, I need you to figure this out. I want to go down to Mexico with my parents. And I was like, I don't know what to do, right?
Hmm.
I felt like I had tried everything. I went to therapy. I saw three different therapists. I did counseling. I did coaching. I read books. I listened to podcasts. Found energetic. I did all of the things, right? And I was like, I don't know what to do. And in that moment, I said, I don't know what else to do.
Wow.
That switch from I don't know what to do is definitive, right? And so if we can open our perspective to say, I don't know what else to do, allows the universe to deliver us something we've never tried before. And that was my story, right? I don't know what to do. I don't know what else to do. I don't know what else to do, right? I get in my car, I'm listening to this podcast, I find Psyche.
Mhm.
I find my facilitator. I pull over my car. I email her. I purchase 4 sessions with her. I go through one session with her to resolve the trauma that I was experiencing. That when we get caught in these stories, right? They're trauma loops. And basically, it's like any time that your system senses
Yep.
the threat of it, you're going to go right back into those emotions, right back into those stories, right? I was in this trauma loop with my mother-in-law. And in my first call, I closed that trauma loop. I gave myself empowering beliefs, and she came over the next day and I felt completely at peace, right? But it started because I had switched, I don't know what to do, to I don't know what else to try.
Right.
I don't know what else to do. And then I was able to find the solution, right? The universe delivers us things when we're ready, but if we have a limiting belief,
Ready and open.
it's closed. When we have
Yeah.
limiting beliefs, it's there's a wall between openness, right?
Hmm.
And so you asked me about examples. Those are some examples like from my own life, but also the ones that come up in my client sessions, right? Like um and what I do is help them create new beliefs. So sometimes we're, for instance, I'm not worthy, or I'm bad at relationships, or I want to have a more meaningful, open relationship, whatever. Could be I am worthy of love no matter, you know, how I am or whatever. And so
Hmm.
sometimes we're creating new beliefs to override kind of a disempowering belief. Sometimes we have to create an entirely new belief because it hasn't been there. And sometimes we have to create a not belief, which is,
Hmm.
I had one client that said and believed I am stupid,
Yeah.
right? You can't do I am smart and override I am stupid. You're still going to believe I am stupid and you're going to believe I am smart. And that creates a tug of war in your system,
Yeah.
right? And so we had to first create I'm not stupid with I am smart, right? So you have to override these really disempowering core beliefs
Right. So you got to tear
because,
down that first I am stupid wall
yep,
before you can start believing that you're smart. So
yeah,
almost like one of mine is I don't deserve to be successful
mm,
and financially stable.
yeah. So yours would be I do deserve to be
Hmm.
financially successful and stable, right?
Yeah.
And maybe we can even, I don't know if you're open to this, but at some point, maybe I can walk you through the balance like we did at the conference, because it really doesn't take all that much time, right? So, especially when you're aware of maybe a limitation that you have,
Yep.
between your awareness, me coaching you through it, putting you in a balance, and you getting to the end of it is 5 minutes, right?
Hmm.
It's like, when I went through when I went through my first session and I
So
got
you're
to,
you're referring to rewriting these stories so we can get a new narrative.
well, what you're doing, yeah, I truly believe everything starts in the belief system. That's where our stories come out of. That's where our thoughts are spurred. That's where our words take manifested form. That's where our behaviors, we do or don't do something. That's where our habits are formed. And so I'm a huge fan of, well, I don't have a lot of patience. I'm a 9 and quick start, as you know. And so I'm a huge fan of going to the core of where we start, right? It starts
Mhm.
from your belief system.
Okay.
And so, if we rewrite your belief system, that will change the narrative you're telling yourself. It'll change the way you speak. When I'm in client sessions, you can literally hear the change of their frequency of their voice. When they say the statement first, they integrate it, they say it again, there's a change in frequency and tone. Because when you believe something, it's more grounded, right? There's a resonance to it.
Hmm.
And so when we do this work, it's always guided from our higher selves and making sure that everything is safe and appropriate to release and to do and all of this kind of stuff. I had a call today, or not a call, a woman today that uh, she wanted to program, I trust my intuition above all else. And we got, no, it's not safe and appropriate to do that. So we had to gather more information, right? I used some tarot cards to understand like what is it that we need to do, and it was really just about resolving um, the feeling of being betrayed almost by by her belief systems and by her intuition and not trusting it. And
Right.
she had to resolve that first because you can't create a new belief without resolving the emotional ties, right? And so going back to it, it's all held in the belief system, which then changes that personal narrative, and it ends up changing your behavior and then thus your life.
So how can this occur? Like you said, if 95% of our subconscious controls our behavior day to day,
Yeah.
um, these like, I'm just trying to phrase this properly because you just told me a few good things that is kind of changing my belief system about a lot of this stuff. um, so your subconscious there to creates these stories and they continue to tell us. So how can we get out of that? Like you said, it's trauma loops as well, and I
Yeah.
really relate to that too. Is it fair to say that a lot of our beliefs, our limiting beliefs, is based on past, little T trauma or even big T trauma from our past?
Yeah,
And as a
absolutely.
child, we didn't have the cognitive ability to siphon the bullshit and good stuff. Does that
Hmm.
make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So if we gotta rewrite this loop, I guess it's rewriting a story, a new narrative, but then we'd have to make this conscious if 95% subconscious. So how do we make it conscious?
Yeah. So the first step is really awareness. Again, like that, bringing the unconscious to the conscious. It's where in your life do things feel sticky or icky or tough or hard or upsetting or frustrating.
Mhm.
If you take those moments and you start to tell bring those to conscious awareness and start to say, what's my story about all this? And you start to write down all the story around it, right? And putting pen to paper is a powerful thing
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you start to fucking write down the story and you're like, oh my God, I believe all of this, right? I did this around, I did in money came up for me in December, and specifically around women, patriarchy, and rich women. Um, and I had never really thought about it in that way. I've done a lot of work around money. I feel very neutral around money. Money is energy, money is a resource, and all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. But when I started to look at what do I think about rich women,
Oh,
particularly, and I was like, I started writing down that they were entitled, that they had bad friendships, that they were snobby, that I had nothing in common with them, that all of these things.
so these are stories you believe were true.
These were things that in my subconscious, right? If I hadn't challenged my story, if I hadn't written it out, I wouldn't have been able to tell you that's what I believed about rich women. Because truthfully, it's like, I want to be a rich woman. But guess what? If I believe all of this stuff toward a whole group of people that I
Mhm.
aspire to be, my subconscious will block me at every turn because there's no way that I want to lose friendships. There's no way that I want to be looked at as entitled. There's no way that I want to
Right.
be
So that's how it's
that.
sabotaging your future growth.
It's sabotage. Exactly. And so
Right.
I like to use self-sabotage as self-love. I have a worksheet available on my website that we can use these moments where we can look at, yeah, we self-sabotaged, but I don't like looking at it as sabotage. I think it's an indicator of what are your disempowering stories and your limiting beliefs because there's a reason you self-sabotaged, but you just don't know what it is yet.
Whoa, 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 whoa. You gotta expand on that one a little bit. Okay. You have to repeat that. Can you remember that?
Not really. Self-sabotage is an indicator of our limiting beliefs and our shitty stories.
Yeah.
And if we can take the moments in which because I think many people can be like, I totally self-sabotage that, right? Like there's conscious awareness in when you do it, you're like, shit, I did it again,
Mm-hmm.
right? Take it two steps further and say, shit, I did it again. What was it? What was my story about this? Why did I decide, consciously or unconsciously, to make the choices I did? What was I
Right.
afraid of? What was I thinking? What was I believing about this? Why, what
Why? Why?
benefit, yeah, and
Yeah.
what benefit do I have to not having this thing?
Yeah, so it's not necessarily a story around it. That's throwing me off for a loop. I know what you're saying, but at the same time, it's almost as if what story am I telling myself to negate that effect? It's because in a way it's your subconscious telling you you suck. Like for me,
Yeah.
one big revelation I have is I was raised by two blue collar parents,
Mhm.
unionized, and this was ingrained in me. For every hour you put in, you're paid X amount. That's your
Yep.
value, that's your
Yes.
worth. And if you
Yes.
are a office worker who makes money off those poor people, they didn't say poor, but the blue collar, then you are an asshole.
Well, you're
Right?
exploitative. That's
Right.
patriarchy. That's capitalism.
So at the same time, so now it was like still with my own company, I was still clocking in and out in my head. I was still working a lot of hours to justify me not doing anything, air quotes, because I'm talking to customers, I'm quoting and finding out new solutions.
Yeah, and I think what you said, I think a lot of people can relate to, and I think that's something that came up in the money journey, right? It's like if we believe time equals money, there's only a certain amount of time in the day.
Yeah.
If you start to flip it to value equals money, money equals money, right? If
Yeah.
you start to
Value is a multiple
untell
of money.
yourself these disempowering stories, and to be honest, capitalism has a lot of limiting beliefs ingrained and programmed into the masses because they control us that way. They can make
Yeah.
us be their workers. They can make us clock in and out. They can make us think that that's all that we deserve or that we're worthy of, right? And so they need that. They need that for the system to function.
Hmm.
And we do see a lot of capitalistic abuses and exploitative nature. And again, if you have these perceptions and real experiences and limiting beliefs, why on earth would you want to be an entrepreneur who forges his own company, who hires people just like your subconscious belief system believes you're going to have to exploit these people to be rich,
Right.
right? And good-hearted, good humans won't do that,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
so, but it's not true. It's not true. There's tons of companies out there that are not exploitative, that are good for the planet and good for humanity, doing really good things. And I personally have the belief that good people doing good things need to be well resourced to do more good things,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
so I prefer to support businesses like that and ideas like that. And and I think if we can just we have to remember that we're a whole product of our ancestors, of our lineage, of our family systems, of our cultural systems, of our governmental systems. All of this plays into what we tell ourselves, what we believe. And I always say we speak from our subconscious system, right? So we talked a little bit about how can we bring the unconscious to the conscious. You're constantly talking from your subconscious system. So catching what you say, right? I was at our dinner last night. We had a little fundraiser dinner, and my son's baseball coach, he goes, "Man," he's like, I was so exhausted last night that I slept so well, and I know that I can't do that 2 nights in a row, so I'm probably going to sleep like shit tonight."
Right.
And I go, "Why don't you tell yourself a different story?" right?
Yeah.
Because your cells are always listening to you. And I had one client who described it in a way that I loved because I think he's pretty high on the implementer, but he described it in this balance. And he's like, I almost saw it as like I was the general foreman and my subconscious were all these little workers and they were building this shitty cabin. And I went in and was like, I don't want you building this shitty cabin. I want you to build me a palace. Right. And they
Right.
were like, oh, well, we didn't know. Just give us the information and we'll build the palace. We were doing this thing because that's what we were told to do. They don't care whether it's disempowering or empowering. They don't care if it's good or bad or positive or negative.
Yeah.
And so I think if you think about it in that way, is that you're the captain of the ship, right? But your subconscious system is calling all the shots. So
Hmm.
it's like we need to be aware of what are we telling our sailors to do, right? And when we're speaking, catching yourself and being like, wait, do I want to subscribe to that story as truth? Do I want to believe that I can't sleep 2 nights in a row? Well,
Hmm.
no. And if you just start that exercise and really start to deconstruct, it brings you'll be shocked at the things you believe.
Yeah. Like I tell a lot of people, there's nothing you can tell me is going to be any worse than what I tell myself.
Right.
Right. And like your example of the capitalistic and the way society is set up, all those examples, they're very good. But at the same time, when you were saying those, I'm like, that can also be within your family, your extended family, your friends, your workplace. Like it's not just the business environment, it's everywhere. Like I know for me, the majority of my self-belief, limiting beliefs is stemming from my family.
Yeah.
You know, they did the best, they tried their best, they weren't
Yeah.
malicious about it, it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Um, so, but it is in the end, like I told my one friend, you know, every time he says something very intelligent and smart, he's a great thinker, he says, oh, I got, you know, it's just another stupid farmer thing. And I'm like, can you know, buddy, can you stop shitting on my friend buddy? Is what I keep
Right.
telling them, right?
Yeah.
Right. And all of a
Self-deprecate.
sudden,
Yeah.
and then he shakes his head. He's like, "What do you mean? What do you mean?" I says, "You're too hard on my buddy. So stop it, buddy." Right.
Yeah.
And then he's, you know, and then he actually thought about it later. It's like, "Holy crap! You know, I have
Yeah.
been crapping on myself
Yeah. Well,
too
it's a
much."
self-protection mode, right? It's if
Yeah.
I self-deprecate, then you can't get me. I'm going to
Yes.
get myself before you get me.
Oh, I
It's a
know everyone
protection
who's
mode.
listening going, "Yep, I hear that. Feel that. I feel
Yeah.
that. I
And
got
so
it. I
just
got the chills on that
being
one."
aware. Like in my journey, it was hard for me to take compliments. Like I remember very vividly being like, I don't know, wearing whatever dress from Target and somebody was like, "Oh my God, I love your dress." Instead of being like, "Oh my God, thank you." I was like,
Okay.
"Oh, I got it on
Sorry, from
sale at
Target.
Target."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like they don't what? That's such a weird response. Like you can just say thank you. And you can mean it and you can take that in. But when we have barriers and blocks and walls, we need to defend, we need to prove, we need to self-deprecate, right? So all
Hmm.
of these are coping mechanisms that we've learned over time how to deal
Yeah.
with our limiting beliefs.
And that's what the thing brain doesn't realize. Whatever coping mechanism it does, it doesn't know if it's the negative or positive effect. It's just there, brings you there to protect you and keep you safe.
Yeah, I challenge most people because a lot of people are like, "Well, I don't feel safe." It's like it's not necessarily safe, it's familiar.
Yeah,
Because
and
you'll
comfortable and comfort, right?
no, not even
No.
comfortable because it can be very
Oh, you said
uncomfortable,
familiar?
familiar.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I completely agree with that. Because I know
Yeah.
the first job I actually ever had my first job as a career, I went to a no and that culture was negative and I knew it, but I knew how to survive in
Yeah. Well, and it's this, you'll hear this a lot. I hear it a lot. Like, choose the devil
it.
you know rather than the devil you don't know.
Yeah,
And that's that in that fucking scenario, you're choosing between two devils. I prefer neither, right? Like
yeah,
I don't want any of that. And so all of these societal slogans, all of these are all programs in which we're running from, right? And
yeah,
so we have thousands of disempowering programs, and my job is like you said, it's not just about the job or the work. This belief is deeper and it impacts every area of your life.
yeah. And
And
it's not
so,
easy work to override these narratives, because you got to be horribly honest with yourself too at times. And a lot of people are afraid of that. Maybe not horribly, but I think you got to be
Yeah, you have to have a certain level of awareness. But here's the deal is that
and
all
want to
it
fix it.
it's not I like to challenge this because it's not hard. It's easy. All it takes is a willingness
Mhm.
and a little bit of transparency and humility. Like
Yeah.
if you can just say, this is all the shit that I do not like about my life, or this is all the things that I realize I am doing and I don't want to do anymore. If you can just have the courage to do that, the willingness to do that, the rest of it is really easy because the process that I facilitate is incredibly fast and effective, right? Because I
Mhm.
don't believe that we need to re-traumatize ourselves. I don't believe it needs to take a lot of time, energy,
Yeah.
effort. And so once we develop the ability to bring awareness and we say, I'm tired of my own shit. I'm tired of feeling
Mhm.
like this, right? It only takes a willingness. It's not hard. It's just that you need to be willing.
Yeah, I think that's a better way of saying it, willing to do it and not
Yeah.
everyone's willing to try. Like with you and your mother-in-law. You could have
Right.
just said, I don't like you and I'm gonna plant my feet and I can't figure out another way to do it.
I mean,
So
that's what I did for three
yeah,
years. I did that
yeah.
for 3 years, right? But internally, every time I heard her name, I would feel enraged. Anytime that
Hmm.
I was around her, I would feel mad. And I personally didn't want to feel those emotions,
You're right.
right?
Yeah,
And so,
you wanted to make a change.
yeah, and I'm like, for me, it
Yeah.
wasn't necessarily that I wanted to mend our relationship, and our relationship is fantastic now. Like the other night, she was over babysitting, and my husband and I were like, if we ever move, like we'll make sure that we have like a mother-in-law quarters for you to stay
Yeah.
at. Like that would have never over my dead body would have that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's when we can heal our subconscious system and we can heal these trauma loops and we can tell ourselves better narratives, we can then connect the way we want to connect instead of
Hmm.
from our coping mechanisms, from our reactions, from our
Yeah.
hurt and our wounds, and
And be
instead of
present the way
blaming.
you want to show up.
Exactly. And we can use these moments of challenge as because I know for one, I blame my husband for all of it. I'm like, you're a stupid asshole and you're being a dick. You know, like that felt better for me. But the
Yeah.
truth was is that he was activating something in me from my fucking childhood that I needed to look at.
Yeah.
And so instead now it's like I'm triggered and I'm pissed and I still want to like yell at you about it. But I'm like, okay, what is this in me that's being activated? And what a beautiful thing to have people in your life that give you an opportunity to heal,
Hmm. That's
right?
amazing. We're running out of time. I had a feeling this was gonna go, and we didn't even get to your 5 R's, which I'd like you to come back and discuss that with your
Yeah,
system.
yeah,
But like, you just ended it great. Like this, you just really described how this, how you were self-sabotaging yourself with your limiting belief with your mother-in-law was actually a lot more to do with your self-love.
hmm,
And then challenging your story and to write it out to get a clear understanding, and which we didn't really talk about, but it's also identifying the triggers too that
yeah,
helps you define that story. And then what's blowing me away is that your subconscious is 95% of your behavior day to day. That's just, it makes a lot of sense when
yeah.
I'm doing that. So, if you're going to make up stories, why not make up good stories that make you feel good and they empower you? So Victoria, thank you very much. Where can people find you?
Um, I'm online on Instagram and TikTok, The Rapid Renegade. I have a new website, not the, it's just rapidrenegade.com/home. I can't figure out how to get the slash home off my website. So you're gonna have to type that in. And you can email me at therapidrenegade@gmail.com. Um,
We'll
those are
have it in the
probably,
show notes too.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, sweet. Thanks again, Victoria. I appreciate
Thank
it. And
you.
you, the listener, what stories are you telling yourself? Is it time to say no more? Victoria, thanks again. And to the
Thank you.
listeners, thanks again for learning with me. We'll talk to you soon.